Well, hello. I want to tell you about a nod. Not a big one. I probably, when I said it, you started nodding, like, yep, tell me all about it. Not an enthusiastic nod of someone who generally agrees. I'm talking about the small nod. The one that kind of travels around any room that you're in, like a wave, whether you're at the kitchen table or you're out with your family, your friends. One person starts it, and within 45 seconds, everyone's nodding. They've joined in. It's like this unspoken agreement has taken over everybody. And it's interesting that I say that because it means that everybody there has officially agreed to something that nobody actually believes in. And we're going to look at this. You've given this nod. I've given this nod. I've, we've done it in meetings where we know the timeline is clearly impossible. We do it at the kitchen table, like as I said before, where a conversation that needed to happen didn't happen. And then we both decided that, you know what, tonight's not the night. I do it in my own internal rooms, y'all, where I've told myself, you know what, not yet, not now. When things calm down, and I do it, and I've done it, and I do it, continue to do it for longer than I necessarily want to admit. And I'm admitting it on the airwaves to those of you that tune in. And you know what's even more interesting is I gave myself that nod for about 15 days. I spoke about it in the episode that dropped last week and it's coming back in this week. And as I said, I knew episode 15 needed to be recorded. I had my scripts, I had the material, I had been living the Raga arc in real time. Shared with you the grant I almost didn't apply for, the mosaic selection that I almost didn't claim, the Good Friday dinner, where the need came out smaller than the truth. I spoke to you that, I've had more than enough material to record, and I kept telling myself, not yet. Today I'm tired. I didn't work out, a whole bunch of stuff. And I didn't do this because the work wasn't ready. I did it, I feel, I've been telling myself, because something in me needed more time before it can be witnessed, before I wanted anyone to see it or hear it or experience it. And I ran what I've been calling the artificial harmony with myself about it. I told myself it was about quality, it's about timing, it's about getting it right, when what I actually was doing was protecting myself from the exposure of the full thing. And we talked about full things last week when we were talking about the ask. And so you all know what time it is. It's Sunday. We're at the Empathy Lab. I'm Tatum. And we've spent the last 7 episodes naming the kleshas in your individual nervous system. And today, y'all, we're going to scale it up. Today, we're going to look at what happens when the kleshas run not just in the body, but across an entire room. When that nod of yes travels, and when a whole system agrees to a lie. And I just mentioned it before. Today, we're talking about artificial harmony. And I'd like to start with the one who built the framework and then ran it on herself for 15 days. So I'm going to start with myself. I built this framework and then I ran it on myself. I'm going to build the architecture of what happened or what's been happening. You've been in this room, let's say it's work, or if you do not have like 9 to 5 work or any type of work, but you are working for yourself, self-employed as well, that all fits. The agenda circulated 3 days ago. Everyone's read it. Everyone has thoughts about it. We go through this in the lab all the time. The strategy is ambitious in the way that ambitious sometimes means under-resourced. We've all been under-resourced. The timelines that they've been given out at your job is optimistic. And you and I both know it's optimistic in the way that optimistic sometimes means someone will burn out, absorbing the gaps that are there. The leader presents, finishes, looks around, says, any concerns? Does anybody have anything they want to say? And in the next 45 seconds, before anyone has consciously decided anything, a calculation, and you'll see it this week because I'm calling it out, runs through every nervous system in the room simultaneously. Not a thought, a body level assessment. This is what's happening in real time, and I've seen it. What is the cost of being the one who does not nod in agreement? What happens to my standing, my relationship with this person, my people leader, my sense of belonging in this room if I'm the one who slows this down, if I'm the one who doesn't nod and agree, or if I raise my hand and have a question? That calculation, my friends, is running faster than vocabulary. It's running faster than strategy. It's running faster than any conscious decision. It is the oldest calculation that the nervous system runs. We all run it. And after today's episode, you'll be very aware of it. In a lineage that I've spent a long time sitting inside, it has a name. And the name is abivanesha. And I have talked about abivanesha all through the last 7 episodes. And this one is the survival klesha. This one is the clinging to belonging. This one is the FOMO. It's not a fear of physical death, as I've said several 11 times. It's the fear of the social death, of being cast out, of losing the room, of being the one who made things difficult because you asked a question. And here is what most people miss about it. Abivanesha does not only run in individuals, it runs in groups, in rooms, in cultures, in organizations that have been running this calculation long enough that the calculation has become the architecture itself. The calculation is the thing. When enough people in enough rooms run that calculation for long enough, something specific happens. The organization stops being able to hear the truth. Not because people are dishonest, because the system has made the cost of honesty higher than the cost of the nod that you agree. And what we call this in the lab is artificial harmony. It's not conflict, it's not silence, it's the sustained mutual collective agreement not to go there, to protect the peace that's not peace, to keep the surface smooth while the real intelligence of the room goes underground, into the elevator, into the DMs, into the parking lot conversation, into the journal entry that you and I both make at midnight. As I've expounded on, what we practice at the small scale sets the pattern for the whole system. One nod in one meeting is not the problem. The fractal holds. One nod becomes a team that doesn't escalate. A team becomes an organization that can't course correct. An organization becomes a culture that mistakes the absence of dissent for the presence of alignment. It started every time with one person calculating the cost of the truth was way too high. That's how it starts. The truth is too high to be seen. So I'm going to just create some artificial harmony. Now, for those of you that pay attention to the newsreels, you can see this artificial harmony play out in real time with our real lives every fucking day. And I don't care whether you're in Canada, the USA, Europe, Australia, all these politicians be playing up in our face all the time. I'll just leave that one there. Let's go visit this in some rooms, shall we? Artificial harmony is not abstract. It is not something that happens in other companies, in other families, in other people's nervous systems. It's happening in your rooms right now, today. And I want you to be able to see it, not just feel it, so you can stop mistaking what it is for peace. So let's look at the unanimous decision, right? So you could be at work, but unanimous decisions happen everywhere. You're working in community, you're volunteering, you're a yoga studio, whatever, right? As I said before, you're in the planning meeting. The agenda has been circulating for 3 days. Everyone has read it. Everybody has opinions about it. The meeting starts. The leader presents the strategy. It's ambitious. It is, if we're all being honest, under-resourced by at least 30%. The timeline is optimistic in a way that only makes sense if nothing goes fucking wrong. And something always goes wrong, because that's the nature of Murphy's Law. The leader finishes, as I said, looks around the room. Any questions, any concerns? Anybody want to say anything? And then I want you to watch what happens in the next 45 seconds. As I said earlier, someone nods first. And if it's a Teams meeting where they're all together in a group and you're looking in, it's usually the person closest to the leader in the organization chart. So that person closest to the leader in the org chart is the person nodding immediately. Or it's the person that needs the leader's approval. Or the person who tried to raise a concern in the previous meeting and watched it land badly. They nod, not enthusiastically, just enough. I'm pretty sure if you watch the news, you can see two people do this all the time next to somebody who has absolutely no idea what he's doing. I'm not naming any names, I'm just calling it things out. And then what happens is the nod travels. Again, not because everybody agrees, because they damn sure all don't agree. Because Abhivanesha has just ran a calculation in every nervous system in that room simultaneously. And the answer that the room arrives at collectively and silently is the cost of being the one who does not nod is too high. So we're all going to nod about it because we don't want to be that person. The meeting ends, decision is unanimous. And then you know this because we have all been in this meeting, the real conversation starts. As soon as the Teams meeting clicks off, we are all in a side chat. That's a side chat of a side chat. And then you got side chats on the social medias, right? So whether you're Facebook and Instagramming, whatever, you're talking about it. It's happening in the elevator. Two people go to the bathroom. In the Slack DM, side chat on a side chat or a Teams chat. And then it goes out within 20 minutes of the calendar invite for the follow-up. That timeline is insane. Did anyone else think the budget was off? I didn't want to be the one to say it, but if she likes it, I love it. We've all said these things. That sentence that I just said, I didn't want to be the one to say it. That, my friends, is someone, yourself or someone else, Abhivanesha, stated plainly in plain language. I didn't want to be the one to say it. By intelligent people who know exactly what they're doing and cannot stop doing it. We're all highly intelligent people. We all know what we're doing and we all fear to stop doing it. And we do this because the system has never made it safe to do anything else. Remember, we talked about cultures that we create last week. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go listen to that part and come back here. Systems. We create systems and we create systems of unsafety for ourselves. What ends up happening is the actual real meeting happens in the elevator. It's happening in the side chats. The official meeting, what you see there is artificial harmony running at like Joan Collins levels. I call it the inefficiency tax for the corporate folks and the working folks. I call it the energy tax for everybody else. So the inefficiency tax or the energy tax on that decision comes due in about 90 days. So about 3 months. When the project is behind schedule, when it's over budget and everyone's exhausted and no one can quite explain how they got there because everybody officially agreed that we're going to get there. We're going to move to the kitchen table. Okay? The conversation that keeps not happening. We all have them with our partners, with our friends, with our children, with our parents. We all have conversations that need to happen and they keep not happening. This one, though, my friends, is quieter. This one costs us way more than we're ever willing to admit to. You and your partner have been circling the same conversation for 6 weeks. Maybe it's about a division of labor. I keep saying that because the lives that we live, division of labor, right? Invisible work, the mental load, the fact that you're managing the logistics of an entire household while also managing a career and a body and grief and a dream. Maybe it's about money. Maybe it's about the next 5 years and what they're supposed to look like. And maybe it's about whether you're both still building towards the same thing. You and I know that conversation needs to happen. They know the conversation needs to happen. Every evening, one of you makes a small, quiet calculation. Is tonight the night? Is there enough bandwidth between us? Is this room safe enough? Will this go somewhere productive, or will it open something that we don't have time to close? And after you run that calculation, it often comes back with equals not tonight. So instead, you're fine. Everything's fine. And what happens is the cupboards close a little harder than necessary. Dishes get put into the dishwasher a little bit more, how do I say, enthusiastically than necessary. The silence at dinner is a specific kind of silence. You're both present and both somewhere else entirely. That is artificial harmony at the kitchen table. It's not a fight. It's not a rupture. It's a sustained mutual agreement to not fucking go there, to keep the surface smooth, to protect the peace is actually not peace. I said actually. And the energy tax here, it compounds quietly. It shows up as distance, as the slow erosion of the thing you were both trying to protect by not having the conversation. As the moment, months later, when one of you says, I've been trying to tell you this for a long time, and the other one says, you never said anything. And guess what? You are both right. One has been trying to tell the other one something for the longest time. The other one is saying you never said anything. You're both right. When I am in this artificial harmony, I understand myself and my husband are both right, regardless of who's playing which role. The conversation that keeps not happening, though, folks, is not neutral. Every time it doesn't happen, the floor lowers. You map this in your own nervous system. We looked at this last week. The Dervasia tax is real. It runs at the kitchen table the same way it runs at work. It's the same architecture. It's just the different room. Same song, different room. Very simple. Those of you from Montreal that have gone to circus, it's the circus situation. Only Montrealers know what circus and sonar are. So if you want to know what it is, Google it. Let's look at the inner monologue. The agreements that we make with ourselves. This is the one that nobody talks about. We spend a lot of time analyzing the rooms we share with other people. The work room, the house room, the kitchen table, the friend group, the family system, the whole 9 yards. There is one room that only you have access to. And artificial harmony runs in there too. Sounds like this. Maybe I'll bring this up when the timing is better. I will ask for the raise after the next review cycle, after the next quarter. I will start that project when I have more capacity. I'll have that conversation when things calm down. That's you. That's me. In our own room, running Abivenetia against ourselves. The social death you and I are afraid of in that room is not someone else's judgment. It's our own judgment. The fear that if we look directly at the full want, the real timeline, the actual dream, the thing you've been circling for 2 years and mind mapping, and it is still not happening, you and I too will have to reckon with why. That reckoning, that awareness opening is the thing that Abivenetia is protecting you from. So instead, we say, or as I say, the internal rooms in ourselves, the internal room agrees. We agree. Not yet. Not now. Soon, though, when conditions and everything is just right. And you know what the fuck the problem is with when everything is just right? Conditions are never right, y'all. Conditions are the story that Abivenetia tells us to keep the room quiet. Like, remember when we were in like elementary school and the teacher would leave the room and just be like, "Be quiet now," and then we all start, blah, 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 and there's like one person in our class like, "Miss said be quiet," and we all look at them like, "Whatever," that's what that is going on. We did the whole ask in episode 13. We found our price floor, so our non-negotiables in episode 14, and we learned about just doing the gesture, clean clothes, calling it asking, and not attaching that apology to it in episode 15. And right now, today, I'm asking you to notice, are you running artificial harmony on yourself in your own internal rooms? Are you the one who called the meeting and then nodded first in the Teams room? Are you the one sending that Teams DM to yourself at 11 p.m. that says this timeline is insane about your own life? Let's look at the macro fractal, or as I promised at the beginning of our episode, when artificial harmony becomes a culture. After we've now looked at our internal room and we're feeling a bit tender, I'm going to shift your focus to the largest room, and this is the one we call culture. As I've been saying, and I'm paraphrasing from Adrienne Marie Brown, what we practice at the small scale sets the patterns for the whole system. When enough companies run artificial harmony long enough, it stops being a medium problem and becomes an organizational identity. The company that cannot hear bad news early enough to course correct, that's what it becomes. The institution that mistakes the absence of dissent for the presence of alignment. The culture where the most important information, the real assessment, the actual risk, the true cost, lives permanently in the hallway and never makes it into the room with the people who are making decisions or where decisions get made. When enough kitchen tables run artificial harmony long enough, it stops being a relationship problem and becomes a family architecture. The family that does not know how to have the hard conversation because the hard conversation has never been modeled. The children who learn by watching that keeping the surface smooth is the price of belonging, and then who carry that into their own workrooms and their own kitchen tables and their own inside internal rooms. The fractal runs in every direction, down into the body, up into the organization, across into the culture, back through the lineage. And it started every single time with one person in the room deciding that the cost of the full truth was too high. That is the geometry of artificial harmony. That is why the work that you and I have been doing in your own nervous system since episode 9 is not small work. It is not self-help. It is structural intervention at the only scale where structural intervention is possible. The scale of one body, one room, one moment of choosing to not nod when you do not mean it. Wow. So what do we do with all this? Because some of y'all are like, Selena, what? You always come here and blast out my brain, man. What am I supposed to do with this? Because now my head is hot. As I was telling you guys, I'm not interested in leaving you with a diagnosis and no fucking way to actually do something about it. This is not what we're building here or ever what we built here at the Empathy Lab. The antidote to the resistance of artificial harmony is not more honesty. It is not a culture deck that says we value radical transparency that you or whoever puts out on Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. It's not another workshop. It's not a value statement on a wall that nobody reads. It's not another journal that you buy or a pen or whatever. The antidote to this resistance is structural. It requires changing the architecture of the room, the actual conditions under which people calculate whether the full truth is safe to speak or not. Everything starts in this work at the smallest possible scale. 3 rooms. Well, actually, no, let me take that back. 3 moves. You can run all 3. You can start with 1. I say small is good. Small is all. Start with 1. Do with that as you will. So move 1. I want you to mine for the descent before the decision. My son is super into Minecraft. I've been trying to find a way to put Minecraft colloquialisms in this podcast. And here is move 1. Mine for the descent before the decision. People do postmortems. I'm talking about we're doing a pre-mortem. Before the room agrees, before the nod travels, ask the question Abba Venetia is actively trying to prevent you from asking. Not any concerns. That question, like, does anyone have any concerns? That question is structurally designed to produce silence, straight up. I will die on that hill and tell you I have mapped this. It puts the burden of dissent on the individual in public, in real time, in front of the person with the most power in the room. Abba Venetia will win that calculation every single time. Instead, ask this. What would have to be true for this to fail? That question does something different. It makes the dissent structural rather than personal. It is not asking anyone to say, I think you're wrong. It's asking the room to think together about the conditions under which the plan breaks down. It gives Abba Venetia a side door, it's a way to surface the real intelligence of the room without requiring anyone to be the one who slows things down. I say, and I've done it and I'm doing it, run this before every major decision. At the table, in your internal room, before you commit to a timeline or a plan or a version of yourself you haven't fully interrogated, run it on everything. I ran it on this podcast episode. What would be true for this to fail? What would I have to come out here talking to you guys about where my whole podcast arc could fail? It's wild the answers you get. Let the room answer. That's why it says wild the answers you get, because when I let the room answer, I was like, whoa. And I let my room really answer. I did not move the decision until the failure conditions had been named. And I did the damn thing anyway, because it wasn't worth holding the truth. Move 2. So we were mining for dissent. Shout out to Minecraft. Room 2 is what I call the hallway check. Find where the real meeting is happening. If you want to know whether your room is running artificial harmony, you actually don't need a MailChimp survey. You don't need a consultant. You need to pay attention to one thing. Where is the real conversation happening? If the most important information in your organization, so this is for those who are working, right? Not necessarily people leaders, folks like myself. If it lives in your Teams DM or your Slack, and it doesn't live in the meeting, that is artificial harmony. If the most honest conversation in your relationship happens in the car on the way home, so you're driving and you're talking to yourself, and not at the table, that is artificial harmony. If the clearest assessment of your own life happens in your journal at midnight and not in the decisions you make during the day, that is artificial harmony. The hallway is not the problem. The hallway is a diagnostic. So I call it the hallway because it's a space that's not in the rooms where we're talking. So you have hallways in your lives. This is what I've just laid out for you. This is where the real meeting is happening, where the real things are happening, and you can run it on yourself. If you're having some conversations in the car before you get home, you're creating some artificial harmony. If you're writing a bunch of stuff in your journal and it doesn't come up in your day-to-day, that's artificial harmony. You're mind mapping, but then you don't carry that mind map with you, or at least one word, or remember it into your day. Artificial harmony. The hallway of life is where the full intelligence of the room goes when the room is not safe enough to hold it. Those secret spots, the side chats, the side slacks, the WhatsApps, when you already have a fucking WhatsApp group, but you have another group of 2 other people because that's the people you feel safe with. Okay? Your job in this move number 2, as I was saying, as a leader, as a partner, as a person in a relationship with your own life, is to close the gap between what you're saying secretly and privately to yourself and the room. And it's to build a room that is structurally capable of receiving the full truth without punishing the person who brings it. This is not a personality shift. This is an architectural one. Re-architecting ourselves one block at a time. And what it means is changing what gets rewarded. It means making the cost of the full truth lower than the cost of the false exit. It means over time and with consistency, teaching the room, ourselves, that Abhivaneshya does not have to run this calculation on us anymore because the calculation has already been answered. You are safe here. The full spectrum of the thing of who you are is welcome and wonderful here. The nod to belong is not required. Move 3 is what I call the personal rumble. One room this week, the full thing. This week, we're going to take it right into the small scale. You, one room this week. You're not taking on the work culture. You're not taking on the whole culture itself. You're not taking on the whole system. One room where you have been running artificial harmony. One conversation that keeps not happening. One internal agreement you have made with yourself that is costing you more than you have been willing to calculate. I want you to identify it, name it to yourself right now while you're listening, because it's right there. What is the room? What is the conversation? What is the nod you have been giving that you do not mean? This week, run the mining on it, run the pre-mortem on it. Not in the room with the other person yet, in your own internal room, your own self first. What would be true for this to fail? That's the question you're going to ask yourself. What is the actual cost of the false exit you've been taking? Not the imagined cost of speaking, the real compounding energy tax of not speaking. And let yourself calculate it honestly to yourself, for yourself. When you are ready, not before you bring the full thing into the room. Not perfectly, not without fear. Abhivaneshya, my friends, will be there. It will be up in your face. It will fire. Your nervous system will want to nod, to soften, to send the follow-up text, to shrink, to make yourself small. Notice it. When you do, press your feet into the floor and hold that space. Hold the void and say the true thing. We started this series in episode 9 with a single word, but. The word that erases, the word that refuses to hold two truths at once, the word the ego reaches for when the room gets too complex, when people get to be too much, when Asamita needs to protect its territory, and when Avidya needs to keep the picture simple. We named the throat clench, we named the shrink, we gave you the and protocol, and told you to widen the room, open yourself. Then we went deeper. Episode 10, we audited our inherited survival scripts, the justs, the sorries, the preempted apologies, the language of people who learned early that taking up space was a risk. In episode 11, we named the thaw, mud underneath the ice. We talked about vulnerability hangovers, the void as load-bearing mortar, so being that person that takes everything on. And we practiced holding the floor. In episode 12, we were in the mistaken room. So we're looking at the rent we're paying on a room we had already outgrown. We entered the Raga arc, which is episode 13. The whole ask, the full want, before the internal auction gets to it. We went to episode 14, the price floor, your number, before the room. Episode 15, clean clothes, asking for the full thing, holding it in the open, not sending the apology, knowing the floor will hold and not fall out underneath us. 5 kleshas, 8 episodes, 1 through line, 1 suture that holds it all together, or sutra, thread. Asamita, the ego that needs to protect its shape. Avidya, the refusal to see the full, complex picture. Ragas, the clinging that distorts desire into need. Dervesha, the retreat that walks the want back before anyone can respond. Abhivanesha, the fear of social death that runs the room. All 5 are present in every room you walk into. All 5 are present in your body right now. None of these are your enemy. Kleshas are ancient. They are intelligent. They are the nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do. To keep you alive, keep you belonging, keep you inside the room rather than outside of it. I like to quote Toni Morrison here for a second. She said something along the lines that she would write her words along the margins so the center found its way to her. That is what we're doing here. I took you on the margins so you could see your center and have your center find its way back to you. The work that we've been doing together is not to eliminate the kleshas. The work here is to see them clearly enough that they stop making decisions for you. Abhimanesha will fire when you ask the pre-mortem question. Devesha will go off when the room goes quiet after you say the full thing. Ragas will lose its mind when you are tempted to negotiate yourself down before anyone has said no. When I say lose its mind, it'll be fully in that party, like, yes, girl. Avidya will fire when the complexity is more than your ego wants to hold. And Asamita will be there when being seen feels like too much exposure. Notice them. Name them. Take a deep breath in and a deep one out. Press your feet into the floor. Do the thing anyway. I've been saying all season what we practice at a small scale sets the patterns for the whole system. You, my friends, are the small scale. You're one room, one conversation, one unretracted ask. That is the pattern. That is the fractal. That is how the whole system here changes. Whew. This episode 16 now closes season 1. 16 episodes. 8 months of mapping the architecture of what breaks people in rooms, in bodies, in lineages, in systems, delivered to you all here over the arc of 16 episodes. I, my friends, need to rest. I need to live inside what this season has taught me before I start teaching the next one. The empathy lab, everyone, will be quiet until the solstice. Season 2 opens Sunday, June 21st. And we're going to return with our first guest conversation. A format shift, a new arc, and the territory this work has been building towards since episode 9. The repair. What actually happens after the framework is installed, after the truth has been spoken, after the room has been disturbed. Season 2 is the longer, messier work of building something new. And in the meantime, the Substack continues. The inefficiency tax on LinkedIn continues. My ecosystem is still in motion. The podcast takes the rest. So I want to thank each and every one of you for being in the room with me this season, for every DM, every screenshot, every voice note, every time you heard yourself in the pattern and wrote to me to say so. You are the field. This work, my work, is nothing without you. This has been the Empathy Lab. I am Tatum. Stay anchored, stay hydrated. Tend to yourself so you can tend to others. Peace, peace, peace.